Hey guys, welcome back. Emmanuel here, and the NBA season is just 2 months away, and everything that was going to happen inside the offseason, all the trades, all the big names getting moved have already happened. So it's safe to say and safe to make this video. This video is going to be 5 teams that you should look out for in the upcoming NBA season. I'm going to do a countdown from number 5 all the way to number 1, and I'm going to explain to you guys why these teams should be on your radar. At number 5, we have a team that's going to surprise you guys. Every year I have a dark horse for the NBA. Last year I had the Denver Nuggets, and look what happened. So this year, number 5, I have the Minnesota Timberwolves. Yes, those Minnesota Timberwolves. Listen, for my entire life, the Minnesota Timberwolves have been irrelevant. But it looks like the Minnesota Timberwolves are starting to make a turnaround at that franchise. The best thing they ever did was draft Anthony Edwards. He's just 3 years into his NBA career, and he's impacted that organization so much. He is what Karl Anthony Towns was supposed to be for them in 2015. He has effectively become the number 1 guy in Minnesota that makes the team go, that everyone galvanizes around. His will to win is what allowed them to make the playoffs last year. I like what I saw from them last year, but then I also like what I'm seeing from them in the offseason. What do I mean? They last year traded for Rudy Gobert. They gutted their team, and they gave up a bunch of draft capital for Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert was a nice, decent player, right? His forte was really defense. He's won Defensive Player of the Year. But he's a reliability on offense because he can't shoot threes. One of the big men in the league that can't shoot threes, but I like what I'm seeing from him in the offseason this time around. During the FIBA World Cup, he got a taste of what it could feel like to knock down threes. And because he did that during the World Cup, it gave him enough confidence in order for him to actually try and incorporate three-point shooting into his game. And I've seen him work on that shot, and it looks like he's becoming serious about it. If he can become serious and become a real threat shooting the 3 ball, it opens up a lot of new opportunities for the Minnesota Timberwolves. This is what I like about the Timberwolves. They were able to not only make the playoffs last year, right? But they were one of the teams that actually beat the Denver Nuggets. We all know how good the Denver Nuggets were this past season. They actually swept the Los Angeles Lakers, but they didn't sweep the Timberwolves. Timberwolves had the same record against them as the Miami Heat. Think about that. And so because of that, because of what I saw from them last year and the amount of work that Rudy Gobert is putting in, and I just know Anthony Edwards is going to get better. He's playing with Team USA. He's going to just get better and better. I think you can expect to see the Timberwolves to be a bit better than they were last year. So that's my number 5. At number 4, I have the Sacramento Kings. You guys know what happened last year. The Sacramento Kings came essentially out of nowhere and surprised everyone last year when they clinched the 3rd spot in the Western Conference last year. And unfortunately, they lost in the first round to the defending champions, the Golden State Warriors. But that was just a clip, a preview of things to come. In my opinion, the Sacramento Kings draw a lot of comparison to the Golden State Warriors when the Warriors were just coming up. I can see a lot of the same things from them. They have a young guard in De'Aaron Fox that literally last year was the clutchest player in the 4th quarter by the numbers. They have a number 2 in Malik Monk, that's Klay Thompson. They have Domantas Sabonis. And then furthermore, they have the perfect head coach for this team. They went out and they got Mike Brown, the same Mike Brown that coached the Warriors when Steve Kerr was going through health problems. So he brought a lot of what he knew, a lot of what worked for the Golden State Warriors over to Sacramento, and you saw how energetic that team was ready come playoff time. They took the Warriors all the way to Game 7, and were it not for Stephen Curry being an all-time player and dropping 50 points in Game 7, they would have made it to the 2nd round, and honestly, maybe they would have fared better against the Lakers. But the good thing about that team is they're still young. So whatever we saw from them this past season, they're going to become better this year. I like that about them. I expect them to be number 3 again in the Western Conference. The amount of hype that people give the Memphis Grizzlies is the hype that they should give the Sacramento Kings. That's how good I think they are. They're going to just become better and better and better, and expect them to give somebody a run for their money. Expect them to give somebody problems in the playoffs next season. That's my number 4. At number 3, I have the Los Angeles Lakers. Listen, the Los Angeles Lakers, right, got swept in the playoffs. I know. They got swept by the Denver Nuggets. the Denver Nuggets were really good. I think the Los Angeles Lakers are still a really formidable team. I think they're still a contender. Because if you take into account everything that happened to the Los Angeles Lakers last year, and you compare it to their outcome, it was a miracle of a season. You have to remember, the Los Angeles Lakers started out the season 2-10 with Russell Westbrook on their team. 2-10 to making it to the conference finals is incredible. Most teams would give up. Most teams would say, listen, it's not our year, right? Not only that, but both LeBron James and Anthony Davis got injured last year. So Anthony Davis got injured and LeBron had to carry the Lakers for about a month. And during that time, LeBron averaged 38 points. And then he got hurt against the Mavericks, and Anthony Davis kind of carried for a bit there. Anthony Davis played some of his best basketball we've ever seen in the playoffs. This is what happens when you have a healthy Anthony Davis. When you factor all those things that happened to them, and then you add in the fact that the squad that they went into the playoffs with, they only had that squad since February. They had that squad for 2 months to get ready. They didn't have a lot of time to build chemistry. They went out and they got really good pieces during the trade deadline. They got D'Angelo Russell, they got rid of Russell Westbrook, they got Jared Vanderbilt, and they melded together. That's the beauty of playing with LeBron, with a guy who's that high IQ in basketball. It worked enough to the point where they were able to make the playoffs, make the conference finals. Now they got swept, but imagine what they can do when they start out the season knowing exactly the team identity. They're not fighting the woes of having Russell Westbrook on their team, when LeBron's not having to carry extra load because Anthony Davis is out. Imagine what they are going to accomplish now that they're going to have a full year to build chemistry, know where their strengths are, know where their weaknesses are, and by the time the trade deadline comes, they can swap out pieces to fix the holes that they have and get ready for the playoffs. LeBron James is going to be 39 next year, but LeBron James is still playing at a really, really high level. You saw what Anthony Davis can do in a postseason. He was the best player on the team in a postseason, in my opinion. You can expect the Los Angeles Lakers to be a contender for the top spot in the Western Conference next year and a contender for the championship. That's my number 3. And number 2 is going to surprise you. At number 2, I have the Denver Nuggets. Yes, those Denver Nuggets. Listen, the Denver Nuggets were as good as any team I've ever seen. Last year, prior to the season starting, I was sounding the alarm that, hey, listen, you guys, there's a monster sleeping in Denver, and once they wake, no one's going to be able to stop them. Guess what happened? That's exactly what happened. I predicted everything that was going to happen this year with the Denver Nuggets almost to a T. I said, if Nikola Jokic can stay healthy and play at an MVP caliber, and if both Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray return, the Denver Nuggets are going to be one of the hardest teams to beat, because not only do they have these 3 spectacular guys, they are deep as hell. They got guys that can really play. And they picked up some really good players from the draft in Christian Braun. They went out and they got Aaron Gordon. His physique allowed them to do things offensively and defensively that other teams can't do. And they just had their way with the NBA last year. And I wasn't surprised, but a lot of people were. But when they took the number 1 spot from the Memphis Grizzlies in December, there was no looking back. The way that Nikola Jokic was playing, he was playing MVP caliber, and he was my MVP for last season. The only reason he didn't win it was because of voter fatigue and some other behind-the-scenes politics. But he was playing at such a high level that the league had no chance. And unfortunately for the Lakers, they ran up against a juggernaut. And they got swept. And it goes to show you just how good they were. I think they're going to be as good as they were this year. They're going to be really, really good, right? But I still have them at number 2 just because of who's at number 1. So that brings me to number 1. And number 1, we have, of course, the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns, they went out and they made the biggest change in the offseason. They made a few big moves in the last 6 months. One of them being they went out and they got Kevin Durant, and it changed everything. And even though they lost to the Denver Nuggets in the postseason this year, you have to take things into account. Just like the Lakers, they had a completely new roster that they had gotten during the trade deadline. You have to remember, Kevin Durant came in February, right? So he only had 2 months to figure it out with his team. Number 2, when they went up against the Denver Nuggets, they didn't have Chris Paul. So Chris Paul became a liability like he always is, either because he's getting old or he's just missing games. They got rid of that liability, right? They moved Chris Paul and went out and they got Bradley Beal for Chris Paul, someone who's younger, who's more defensively capable, and who can produce and give you more points on offense. It was just a big upgrade, and I was surprised they were able to get that deal done. The fault that they had in the postseason, right, and Chris Paul, they completely changed it. Even with all those handicaps, Devin Booker and Kevin Durant only playing 2 months together, Chris Paul barely playing, they still managed to win the most games against the Denver Nuggets out of every team that the Nuggets played. They beat the Nuggets 2 times with all those handicaps, those flaws that they had. And they fixed those flaws, and I think they're going to become even better next year. And when push comes to shove, and when they need a third scorer, like they did in the postseason, and Chris Paul wasn't there because he's injured, they got someone who's going to be there, and it's not only going to be there, but it's going to make an impact in Bradley Beal. That's going to change everything. And so because of that, I have them as the #1 team to look out for. And like the Lakers, they're going to have a full year to build chemistry and understand each other and understand where they have holes. And when the trade deadline comes, they're going to be able to swap in parts and fix holes that they need to fix. So when the playoffs come, they're going to be ready. And so those are my top 5 teams to look out for. If you like this kind of content, hit the subscribe button, subscribe to this channel, leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'd like to hear what you guys think of my list. And aside from that, thanks for watching.